That little red bump, the undeniable sign of something brewing beneath the surface. Yeah, we're talking about acne.
Mm-hmm.
It's something almost everyone experiences, but the actual science behind it, that's where it gets really fascinating.
It really does.
So today, we're diving headfirst into that science. And we've got a really interesting way to make it all, click. We're connecting some cutting-edge research with a super creative story.
Exactly. We're
Yeah.
going deeper than just the surface today. We're exploring the intricate biological stuff happening that leads to acne.
Right.
We got this key research paper that really unpacks the hidden world inside our skin. And to make these complex ideas really land, we'll see how they're mirrored in the Cütie Catcherz AR comic series.
Think of it as your backstage pass to understanding your skin.
Yeah, precisely.
Our mission today is, well, pretty clear. Understand the crucial role of our skin's own defense system, the immune system, and how acne develops. And then explore how the Cütie Catcherz comic cleverly uses its characters and story to mirror these scientific concepts. It's all about empowering you with a deeper understanding.
Exactly. And to ground this exploration, we're focusing on a specific research paper. It's called The Role of Skin Immune System in Acne, published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine back in 2022.
Okay.
The lead investigators were Julina Firlej and Wieletta Kowalska, and they worked with Karolina Semisek, Jacek Rolieski, and Joanna Bartosiewska.
Right. So this paper looked at the skin's defense system in acne. What exactly were they trying to figure out about that connection? What was the main question?
Well, the traditional view often focuses on clogged pores, bacteria multiplying, that kind of thing.
Sure.
What this research really digs into is whether our own immune system is actually a key player right from the very beginning, not just reacting later.
Ah, okay. So is it involved right away?
Yeah, they wanted to know if our skin's defense mechanisms are actively involved in how those acne lesions actually form.
And how did they approach this? Did they run new experiments in the lab?
No. For this particular study, they did what's called a comprehensive review. They looked at existing scientific literature.
So they gathered all the previous studies.
Exactly. They became sort of expert detectives, analyzing a huge number of studies on acne vulgaris, published between 2005 and 2021.
Wow, okay.
And that allowed them to pull together a really wide range of findings and see the major trends in how we understand the skin's immune response in acne.
So a deep dive into other deep dives makes sense. After looking at all that research, what's one of the basic things they confirmed about what causes acne?
They really reinforced that acne is multifactorial. There isn't just one cause.
Right.
There are several key things happening simultaneously. Hyperkeratinization, that's a buildup of dead skin cells.
Okay, skin cell buildup.
Then there's the blockage of our oil glands, the sebaceous glands. Hormones can also play a role by stimulating more oil production. And crucially, the presence of a bacterium called Cutibacterium acnes.
Cutibacterium acnes. Okay, that's the scientific name. Now, for anyone who's come across the Cütie Catcherz AR comic series, that name might sound familiar.
Absolutely. It's the direct inspiration in the comic series for the characters known as the cuties.
Right.
And just for clarity, especially if you're checking out the comic, we're pronouncing cuties like cooties, like the childhood term.
Cooties, got it. Fits the playful vibe.
It really does, yeah. Fits the metaphor they're using.
Okay, so we've got these C. acnes, or the cuties, on our skin. What did the paper reveal about the very early stages, about inflammation specifically?
This is a really big takeaway. The paper highlights that inflammation isn't just something that happens later, after the pores clog and the bacteria grow.
Okay.
Instead, inflammation is actually present right from the start, in the very early stages of acne development, even before you see those visible comedones, those blocked pores.
Wow, okay. That flips the script a bit. So it's not just the cuties, the bacteria, setting up shop that causes the issue. The inflammation itself is like an initial reaction.
Precisely. It seems to be an early response to their presence, or maybe increased activity.
Right.
And this is where the Cütie Catcherz story offers such a great parallel. In the comic, when the cuties first appear or get more active, that could be visualized as the immediate appearance of the cutie clouds. That's their visual way of showing early inflammation or imbalance in the skin.
The cutie clouds, that sort of hazy, maybe irritated look around the cuties. Okay, yeah, I can totally see that connection. So How do these C. acnes, the cuties, actually interact with our skin to trigger this early inflammation? What's the mechanism?
Well, the paper outlines several key ways C. acnes interacts with our innate immune system. That's our body's rapid first response team.
Okay, first line of defense.
Right. So one major way is activating toll-like receptors, TLRs. They get these like tiny alarm sensors on our skin cells.
Sensors. So when the cuties bump into these TLRs, it basically sets off an alarm.
Exactly. An alert goes out, triggering responses in the skin. Secondly, C. acnes can activate things called inflammasomes.
Inflammasomes, okay?
These are like little protein complexes inside our cells, almost like tiny factories that produce inflammatory signals. Specifically, a molecule called interleukin-1 beta, or IL-1.
Signals like.
The paper even kind of refers to them as angry molecules being released.
Mini factories churning out skin irritation. Got it. What's another way these cuties stir things up?
They can also induce the production of matrix metalloproteinases, or MMPs.
MMPs?
Yeah, these are enzymes. Their job is basically to break down structural components of our skin tissue, like collagen.
Oh.
In acne, this can unfortunately contribute to tissue damage and potentially scarring. You can sort of think of them as the cuties demolition crew.
Oof, demolition crew. Definitely not ideal for clear skin. And the last pathway?
The fourth main way is through stimulating antimicrobial peptides, or AMPs.
Okay, AMPs.
Now, these are actually our skin's own natural defense molecules.
Yeah.
Part of our built-in protection system.
So like a natural cutie repellent.
You could think of it that way, yeah. A natural deterrent that our skin deploys.
Good to know our skin fights back. So let's connect this back to Cütie Catcherz again. How might we see these 4 pathways playing out in that world?
Well, okay, the TLR activation. The alarms that could easily be the initial detection of the cuties in the comic, setting off those early visual warning signs in the skin environment.
Right, the first hint of trouble.
Then the inflammasomes releasing those angry molecules, that connects really clearly to the more intense reactions. The redness, the swelling that we associate with acne, may be represented by more established or angry-looking cuties.
Makes sense.
The MMPs, the demolition crew, you could link that to the potential for lasting changes or, damage in the skin's landscape in the comic world after big battles with the cuties, like scarring.
Yeah, the aftermath.
And the AMPs, the natural defenses, those represent the skin's own power to sort of manage smaller cutie issues, maybe keeping minor infestations in check.
That's actually a really helpful way to visualize it. The comic almost translates these microscopic biological events. Now, the paper also mentioned the adaptive immune system. How does that fit in?
Right, so the innate system is the first responder. But the adaptive immune system, which is more specialized and takes a bit longer to ramp up, also plays a really key role in driving the inflammation in acne.
Okay, the specialists arrive.
Exactly. The paper specifically highlights certain types of T cells. These are lymphocytes called Th1 and Th17 cells.
Th1 and Th17.
Yes. And it notes that acne is increasingly seen as a Th17-mediated disease. This means these specific T cells release pro-inflammatory signals like interferon gamma and interleukin-17A, which basically amplify the whole inflammatory response. Turn up the volume.
So if the innate system is the first alert, the adaptive system is like calling in the specialized units for a bigger fight.
Yep.
How might Cütie Catcherz show that more targeted response?
Maybe the comic introduces different types of cuties. Perhaps some are more persistent or troublesome.
Yeah.
And these specific types trigger a more intense, focused response from the Paw Patrol, which could totally represent the adaptive immune system.
The Paw Patrol.
Maybe certain cuties need specialized catching gear or specific tactics from the Paw Patrol to be dealt with, mirroring how the adaptive immune system targets specific threats.
That fits really well. Now, you mentioned earlier a shift in understanding acne. Can you expand on that a bit?
Absolutely. For a long, long time, the main idea was that acne was mostly about that buildup of skin cells, hyperkeratinization, and then bacteria growing in those blocked pores. Inflammation was seen as kind of a secondary consequence.
Right. It happened because of the blockage in bacteria.
Yes. But this paper and the research it reviews really underscores this evolving view that acne is fundamentally an inflammatory skin condition right from the very beginning.
So inflammation isn't just a side effect. It's actually a core feature, baked in from the start.
Exactly. That perspective really puts inflammation front and center. It's an early key event. So it's not just about, catching the cuties, like the comic title implies, but also about understanding and managing the skin's whole environment and its inflammatory reaction to them.
That's a big shift. And since this paper reviewed lots of other studies, were there any specific findings from that research that really jumped out?
Oh, definitely. Several were quite striking. For instance, some studies used advanced imaging techniques and actually saw those inflammatory changes happening in the skin before any visible blemishes popped up.
Wow, before you could even see anything.
Yeah. And there was significant research showing that TLR2, remember, one of those initial alarm sensors, is much more active in acne lesions. It seems to play a critical role in how C. acnes triggers inflammation.
Okay, TLR2 is a key player.
Right. And interestingly, some studies they reviewed looked at how common acne treatments, like retinoids or even zinc supplements, might work. Part of their mechanism might actually be calming down the activity of these TLRs.
Huh. So those treatments could be helping to basically quiet down the skin's initial alarm system? That's fascinating.
It is, isn't it? Other studies focused on how C. acnes activates those inflammasomes, leading to the release of those angry molecules, IL-1 and another one called IL-18.
More inflammation fuel.
Right. And research also links C. acnes to increased activity of those MMP enzymes, the demolition crew. Plus, as we touched on, the paper highlighted that the regulation of our skin's natural defenses, those AMPs, often seems to be disturbed in people with acne.
So the natural repellent isn't working as well.
It seems that way sometimes. But the good news is treatments like isotretinoin, you might know it as Accutane, and zinc might help restore the balance of those AMPs.
It really sounds like a complex web of interactions happening under the skin's surface.
It absolutely is. The paper also mentions studies finding those adaptive immune cells, CD4 plus T cells, present very early in acne lesions, showing they jump into action quickly.
Right, the specialists arrive fast.
Yeah, and confirming that C. acnes really does stimulate those pro-inflammatory Th1 and Th17 cells.
Yeah.
But here's another interesting bit. They also found an increased presence of regulatory T cells, or TREGs, in acne lesions.
TREGs, what did they do?
TREGs usually help to dampen immune responses, to kind of put the brakes on inflammation. So finding more of them, there might be the body's attempt to control the inflammation locally to keep it from getting completely out of hand.
Okay, so the body is trying to regulate itself too. So putting this back into the Cütie Catcherz world, maybe specific cutie behaviors or different breeds of cuties trigger different alarms, like TLR2, or cause bigger inflammasome reactions.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah.
And perhaps the Paw Patrol strategies reflect these treatments, like maybe a calming serum in the comic acts like it's quieting down the TLRs, or a special tool targets the damage caused by the MMP demolition crew.
That fits perfectly. The comic provides this really relatable framework to grasp these otherwise quite intricate biological processes. The paper also briefly mentioned genetics. How does that factor in?
Right. Genes. The paper notes that our genetic makeup can definitely influence our susceptibility to acne, whether we get it, how severe it is.
How so?
Well, it could be through genes that affect how our oil glands function, or maybe the intensity of our inflammatory immune responses. They specifically mention variations in genes related to TNF, which is a major inflammatory molecule, and various interleukins, those immune signaling molecules.
Okay, so in the Cütie Catcherz story, maybe some characters are just naturally more prone to cutie infestations, or they have much stronger reactions when the cuties show up because of their inherent skin coat or something.
Yeah, that adds another interesting layer, doesn't it? Now, with this much deeper understanding of the immune system's role, are new, more targeted treatments being explored?
Yes, absolutely. The paper touches on ongoing research into therapies that specifically aim to modulate the immune system, rather than just, say, killing bacteria.
Like what?
One example they highlighted is the development of inhibitors that block the signaling of interleukin-1 beta, that key angry molecule we talked about.
Blocking the anger signal.
Pretty much. There's actually an agent called gevokizumab that does this, and it's being studied in clinical trials specifically for acne.
Wow. So future tools, or maybe advanced strategies used by the Paw Patrol in Cütie Catcherz could definitely represent these cutting-edge therapies that focus on balancing the immune response.
Exactly. It's not just about catching cuties anymore, but maybe calming the whole environment. It opens up exciting possibilities for future acne treatments.
This has been incredibly insightful. One thing we really wanted to touch on is how this understanding can be especially empowering for people with darker skin tones. They sometimes experience acne and its after effects differently, right?
Yes, this is such a crucial point. First off, it's vital. Everyone understands acne is a medical condition. It's not about poor hygiene.
Absolutely.
And recognizing the central role of inflammation is particularly important for individuals with darker skin because they are often more prone to developing something called post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, or PIH.
PIH, those dark spots that linger after a breakout.
Exactly. Those persistent dark marks that can stay long after the actual pimple is healed.
So how does the immune response, the inflammation, lead to those dark spots specifically?
Well, the body's immune response, while it's fighting the bacteria and dealing with the inflammation, can also kind of accidentally stimulate the melanocytes. Those are the cells that produce melanin, the pigment giving skin its color.
Okay.
This extra stimulation leads to an overproduction of melanin in that specific area where the inflammation was. That's what causes the dark spot. So understanding this inflammatory link is key for people with darker skin to seek treatments that address both the acne and the underlying inflammation that drives the potential for PIH.
Right, because just killing bacteria might not be enough to prevent the dark spots if the inflammation is still driving that pigment production.
Precisely. It highlights the need for treatments that perhaps calm inflammation alongside targeting bacteria or clogged pores.
That makes so much sense, and I can really see how the Cütie Catcherz metaphor helps here too. By showing this complex battle under the skin, it feels less like a personal failing and more like, well, an internal biological process. It could be really empowering and less stigmatizing.
Absolutely. Understanding this battle beneath the surface, seeing it visualized, can empower you to be more proactive, more informed about your skin health journey, and to look for solutions that tackle the root causes and potential long-term effects like PIH.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive. Let's quickly summarize the main takeaways from exploring the skin's immune system in acne.
Okay. The really essential points are, acne is fundamentally an inflammatory condition. It's driven by this complex dance between cutaxial acnes and our skin's immune system.
Right.
And this interaction involves multiple pathways activating those TLR alarms and inflammasome factories, inducing the MMP demolition crew, stimulating our natural AMP defenses, and involving specialized immune cells like Th1 and Th17.
And the Cütie Catcherz AR comic series, how does it help us get a handle on all this?
It just does a brilliant job using the cuties as this vivid, engaging metaphor for C. acnes and all these interactions. The cutie clouds, the different cutie types, the pore patrol's actions, they all mirror the real science and potential treatments we've been discussing. It turns complex biology into a story we can actually follow.
It really does. So here's a final thought for you listening. Knowing that acne is so deeply tied to our body's own defenses, how might that change the way you think about your own skin wellness? Does it maybe shift the focus from just eliminating spots to fostering a healthier, more balanced skin environment overall?
That's a really powerful question to ponder. Understanding the immune system's role truly opens up new ways of thinking about skin health. It moves beyond just treating symptoms, maybe towards strategies that support the skin's natural balance and help regulate those inflammatory responses for, better long-term wellness.
A really fascinating point to end on. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Until our next exploration, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep appreciating the incredible science happening within your own body.
You got the cooties, we got the cure, fighting breakouts with facts and a whole lot of lore. It's Cütie Catcherz, beneath the skin, where science and story are about to begin. Let's go!
That's a wrap on this episode of Cütie Catcherz Beneath the Surface, where science meets art and technology, and skincare gets a superpower treatment. If you learned something, laughed a little bit, or just loved the blend of art, culture, and biology, make sure to follow the journey at cutiecatcherz.com and stay up to date on Instagram at Cütie Catcherz. Catch every new episode on Spotify and YouTube. Just search Cütie Catcherz Beneath the Surface. And remember, the cooties are real, but so is your power to fight back with knowledge. This is produced by me, Stephen Christian, of Stuck on an Island, in collaboration with Iltopia.